troll games, spam games, joke games. There's a number of terms you could use, but what I'm specifically talking about in this video is video games that were intentionally made to be bad or unserious. Now, this concept isn't exclusive to video games, of course. Neo Yokio is a pretty obvious example, being an anime that was clearly intended to not be taken seriously.
Demonic Chapel? This is a club. My boyfriend's the DJ. He spins Gregorian house.
However, I do find it to be a particularly interesting thing to do with games, given the interactive nature of the medium. Recently, I played an itch.io game entitled Yoshi Goes to Tesco, which was created by a game dev under the username Frog. And, well, it was kind of great. So today, as a sort of April Fool's special, we're going to take a look at this game and determine whether or not troll games benefit from being actually well made. And it is here that I will issue a spoiler warning for the game. A link to the game page as well as my let's play of the game will be in the description. I highly recommend playing the game for yourself or at least watching a playthrough before watching the rest of this video essay. Seriously, it's worth your time. Yoshi Goes to Tesco is a short puzzle RPG, though it does utilize other types of gameplay throughout, including platforming and Pac-Man. The story follows Yoshi, the iconic dinosaur from the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, as he, well, goes to Tesco, which is a popular grocery store chain in Britain. He makes various comments about the items being sold in this particular store, and this is where it's immediately made clear just how unserious this game is. If the game's title and the home screen's use of the theme song from fucking Hong Kong 97 didn't already make it obvious. He goes shopping without incident, though it is notable that Goku from Dragon Ball is the cashier. However, when he leaves, he's immediately greeted by 3 other Yoshis, informing him that a tax collector has found them, implying that they are all guilty of tax evasion. A black Yoshi with red accents shows up, serving Sonic.exe energy, and this is the tax collector and the main antagonist of the game. I'm just going to call him IRS Yoshi during the rest of this video for the sake of simplicity. Anyways, IRS Yoshi tells them that they need to pay their taxes. So they all flee, and during most of this game, the other Yoshis are sort of inside the playable Yoshi in like a Pokemon-esque party system, probably just as a way to decrease visual clutter and make the game run more smoothly. That is to say, they are not visible, but they do occasionally make comments about various things throughout the game. They go into the storage room of the Tesco and talk to a Goomba, who gives information about how jumping works in the game. Notably, when you talk to him, his dialogue portrait is the absolutely horrifying Goomba from the 1993 live-action Mario movie. You do a small puzzle to flip some levers, do some platforming, and then are suddenly thrust into a scene in which you are being tortured in an underground torture dungeon, which the IRS Yoshi informs you is legally on Tesco property and is standard across all Tescos, being one of the sources of their beef. The IRS Yoshi informs them that the entire chamber will soon fill up with poison gas, and then he gives Yoshi an ultimatum. He can either inflict the common fate of his species onto another Yoshi for his own survival, or show mercy and die from the poison gas. It's not entirely clear what he means until you go into the next room. There's a platform you need to get across to flick a lever, and the main Yoshi chooses the sacrifice, using Blue Yoshi as a jumping off point over the pit to make it across, just how Mario will do the same with Yoshis throughout the Mario games. This is shown in a cutscene with a pitched up edit of the bridge from Hide and Seek by Imogen Heap playing in the background. If you don't recognize the title, you'll almost certainly recognize that part of the song, as it was sampled in a popular Jason Derulo song and is also frequently used for memes, even ending up as the punchline of popular SNL short The Shooting, aka Dear Sister.
What you say? That you only meant well. 'cause you did what you say.
I feel like this is as good a time as any to tell an anecdote from my early childhood. When I was quite little, there were these two kids that would often stay over at my home for life reasons that I won't go into. One night, it was pretty late, but I was still awake, so I wound up playing a Mario game with them and my dad. I am about 98% sure that it was New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but I may be incorrect on that. This was a very early childhood memory, after all. Anyways, at one point through the game, I acquired a pink Yoshi, and I was thrilled because I found it especially cute. However, as stated, I was extremely young at the time. I hadn't really played this game or any other Mario game before, at least not enough to be familiar with every mechanic of the game, so when I came across a pit, I innocently tried to double jump across it, not realizing that this would cause my Yoshi to fall into the pit never to be seen again. And let me tell you, I sobbed. I was absolutely inconsolable to the point where I'm pretty sure they ended up just stopping the game for the night. I felt so guilty that I had apparently killed the Yoshi and was heartbroken that I'd never see it again. I'm pretty sure my dad even ended up either buying or unearthing from his belongings a pink Yoshi plush to give me after that as a sort of constellation for the digital Yoshi I had lost. To this day, pink Yoshi is still my favorite one. The first amiibo I ever got was a Yoshi, who I of course programmed to be a pink Yoshi named Peaches when I put him in Smash 4. Remember when amiibos were a huge thing? I also got the pink Yoshi yarn amiibo for Yoshi's Woolly World. Whenever I'm playing as Yoshi in a game and it has color options, I always go for pink and also get very disappointed when that isn't an option. I'll admit, I was even a bit sad in this game when I got to the end and realized that none of the Yoshis I encountered were pink. Anyways, we'll get back to the game now. This scene just reminded me of that. After this tragic sacrifice, you flip the lever and are able to progress to the next room, to which you're subjected to what is, in my opinion, the funniest part of the whole game. Gex is here. If you're lucky enough to not know who Gex is, he's the titular character of a series of platformer games from the late 90s, and is probably most famous, or rather infamous, for his awful one-liners, many of which are just thinly veiled sex jokes. Truly an interesting character, so you can imagine my amusement when I'm playing through this silly haha Mario fan game and suddenly fucking Gex shows up. Yoshi comments on Gex's appearance in what has to be one of the funniest lines in this whole game, and subsequently reveals that he's bisexual. Yes, that's right. Yoshi is canonically bisexual in this universe. You free Gex from his prison, so he helps you by translating some text on a wall in a made-up language called German. What follows is a needlessly confusing puzzle involving these colored crystals. I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't figure it out. Maybe I'm just stupid or something, but thankfully you can ask Gex to just do it for you and essentially skip the puzzle. Gex joins your party, meaning that Yoshi's dream of having Gex inside him quite literally comes true. With that puzzle done, you can now go through this magical mirror, transporting you to this honestly really pretty space area, which leads to another Tesco. The interdimensional Tesco. Goku is here again, only when Yoshi talks to him, we quickly learn that this is not the same Goku as before. This is Londoner Goku. Obviously, this is just another British joke in the game, but it also unintentionally implies that Goku is a species, which I find really funny. You go through another mirror and are put on this set of paths with a bunch of different mirrors that lead you to other places. Go through one, and you're met with Freddy Fazbear, the titular character of the horror franchise Five Nights at Freddy's. He's in a pickle because he spent all of his money on NFTs. He's trying to collect some coins to remedy his financial issue and also be able to afford MatPat's Gamer Boy bathwater, but they're quite literally running away from him. So you play a short mini-game where you have to run around and collect the coins for him. Once collected, he thanks you and you see that a Goomba has appeared in another room. Through another room, you see a floating Luigi head and a very underwhelming jump scare, which, funnily enough, is sarcastically warned when you start the game. you flip a lever to unlock another mirror. You go to the mirror that leads to the Goomba room, and this is where you're once again confronted by IRS Yoshi. Gex pieces out, leaving you to face off IRS Yoshi in a final battle. Pac-Man. Yes, the final boss of the game is quite literally just a Pac-Man minigame, with IRS Yoshi and various colors of Tingle from The Legend of Zelda serving as the ghosts. I personally have always kinda sucked at Pac-Man, but thankfully the enemy AIs in this bit are very weak, so this only took me 2 tries on my first playthrough. Though I would like to point out that if you lose the minigame, you get this screen that says "Gay Over" before it sends you back to right before the minigame. Collect all the coins and you get this victory screen reading, "A winner is you," which is a reference to the victory screen from the 1986 NES game entitled Pro Wrestling. IRS Yoshi decides to let the other Yoshis go, then is immediately crushed to death by Gex. The game ends with a bit of text explaining that Yoshi, at the age of 45, turned himself in and is serving a life sentence. Now, maybe you find all that to be absolutely hysterical, or maybe you think it's dumb. To each their own, but the humor is not actually what we're here to talk about. I think the entire thing is fucking hysterical, but we aren't actually here to discuss if it's funny or what pieces make it funny. All that matters for the sake of this video is that the intention was for it to be humorous, and more notably, it's a good game. When I say good, I should clarify that I do have a few gripes with it. The jumping mechanic was a little busted and poorly explained, the platforming section was a headache in a way that it wasn't meant to be, the whole crystals puzzle was just kinda dog shit, and while I never had any issues with game-breaking bugs myself, I do know that I shared this game with a Discord server I'm in, which encouraged another person to play it, and when they got to the platforming section, they sent this image, which shows a glitch that required them to reboot the game. There's also a few more minor nitpicks I have with this game, but I also have a tendency to nitpick everything, so that's neither here nor there. So yeah, this game isn't exactly up to snuff with like a AAA video game or anything like that. However, this was never going to be that, so that's an incredibly unfair standard to hold it to. At the end of the day, this was a joke game made by one person in RPG Maker. And by that standard, this game is really good. I know I just rattled off a good few issues, but at the end of the day, those are all actually pretty minor issues, most of which aren't even as bad as some glitches and issues you can find in mainstream big-budget games. The movement feels very smooth. I didn't have any issues with lag or anything of the sort. Every bit of puzzle solving and gameplay, aside from the aforementioned crystals puzzle and platforming section, ran fine, and the former of those two even has a built-in option to just skip it. The game is very story-driven, and it balances that pretty well with the actual gameplay, giving some sort of justification for why you're playing through every section, which is something that a lot of AAA story games can't even get right. And beyond that, this thing is insanely high effort. The amount of sprite work that went into this game, even just for one-off gags like this dialogue portrait that the Red Yoshi has at one point, it's astounding. If this game didn't have so much copyrighted material in it, I have no doubt that it could get a release on at least Steam, and probably other storefronts as well. But this all leads back to the question I posed at the top. This game is well made, yes, but does that benefit or detract from its purpose as a troll game? Let's look at both sides. One could argue that it detracts from the troll aspect of the game. None of the actual gameplay in Yoshi Goes to Tesco involves troll elements, after all, unless we're counting the explosions and tingles in the Pac-Man section. If someone downloads this game, or a similar one, they may just want wall-to-wall shitposting, and not necessarily want to solve puzzles or anything like that. It also forces you to confront the fact that the shitpost you downloaded is actually a well-made game, and this can blur the lines for some people in terms of understanding what the point is. I brought up Neo Yokio earlier, but what I didn't bring up was that some people, I'm assuming because the show has some pretty good production quality, take the show fully at face value and denounce it for bad writing, as though that's not like the entire point. To me, this just speaks to a lack of proper media literacy, an issue which seems to be more and more widespread over time, but if the show looked bad, it's possible that more people would get the joke of it. Now, I don't necessarily think a troll as obvious as something with this cover art is going to get that response from people, but similar troll games could. On the other hand, though, one could argue that the quality of the game enhances the experience. Because of the interactive nature of video games, if the actual gameplay is badly programmed, that can very quickly kill a player's experience, even if all the other pieces are working well. It gets frustrating if it feels like you're fighting with the game just to make any progress. And I don't mean the game being hard. I'm bad at Sonic games, for example, but I'm never going to call Sonic Mania a badly made game just because I'm bad at it. I specifically mean there being actual flaws or bugs in the controls and gameplay that make the game harder or sometimes even impossible to progress through for no reason. It just feels bad to play a badly made game. Even if a game is a troll, that still applies. If the gameplay runs smoothly, though, then suddenly you can focus more on the actual humor inherent to these sorts of games. I like Yoshi Goes to Tesco for its sense of humor, sure, but I wouldn't be able to focus on that if the game was poorly made, because I'd be so frustrated with the controls to the point where it would dampen the whole experience. And I know this because I've had that experience with other games, whether they were trying to be serious pieces of art or not. So yeah, in my personal opinion, it does benefit troll games to be well made. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and have a joyous April Fool's Day, everybody.